Hey, Ron.
Yo,
How's it going?
good. What's up?
Oh, nothing. Just happy to be here. Happy to be here and happy to have until tomorrow night at midnight for grades.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why they're not. Why isn't it Sunday at midnight?
Well, I was trying to do things today, and I don't know if it's just my Chromebook or just real time. Like it was taking so long for things to happen, and then things weren't happening. So when I would X out and do it again, and I wouldn't get the screen I need to see, so I'd have to X out and do it again. By the time I actually got one completed, I'd go in and there's like 18 of them in the grade book. So then I got to go and delete them all. And then it takes time to delete them. And I'm just like, this got to be done by Friday at midnight. Well, they might all be getting A's, not math, that's for sure. But social science, it might be like contestants at Oprah, and you get an A, and you get an A, and you get an A. Here you go.
Dude, I loved your text this morning. People were walking in at 8:20. I saw that. I'm like,
Dude, that chick Erica, and like every other day, if it's not Malloy, it's Henderson. I'm like, yo, like, but you know what? I bet you Mel Rivera still comes in late every day.
Sure.
So like, I don't know. Then you know what? I guess if you don't have a homeroom, why do you need to be there? Oh, and Mr. Chris apparently leaves at 2:30. When he was subbing in my class the other day, and Sarzassi had to come over for last period because Chris was like, well, I don't know what they're going to do because I leave at 2:30. And Nicole goes, wait a minute, what? He goes, yeah, I leave at 2:30.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, I guess I'll come over there last period.
Guess what? That probably isn't a way to get hired in the district.
Yeah,
I mean, they've kept him hanging on forever. Like,
well, no, he doesn't have his special ed cert.
oh, I thought he did.
He's got to take his praxis.
Oh,
yeah, I do. I like Chris. But
yeah.
he doesn't. He hasn't taken the practice. I don't. And he keeps saying, "Oh, I got to do that. I got to do that. It's on me. It's all on me. It's all on me." And I don't know. He got into an accident or something. Things happened. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I mean, I didn't get my shit together till I was 30, and before this, I was waiting tables. So it's not like,
right.
You know, I had my shit together, but I think he's about 30.
Yeah.
So, and I know he wants to take Carol Piro's spot,
right.
But he better be certified.
Yeah.
I would say within this year, because
yeah,
I think she wants to go.
He's here.
Okay.
You're low. I don't know if like you're just for yourself. I don't know if you want to be like.
Well, I figured it might even change perspective once he comes in, right? And there's 3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it mattered to you, but
you saying got a fat chin or something, Sean?
Hey.
All right. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. We're excited to chat about it. I'm Ron.
I'm Joe.
You'll have to excuse the blue and black beard. I teach 3rd grade to 8th grade, and this was the last day of the marking period, so the 3rd graders get to vote on what color I dye my beard.
Okay, so. I like it. That's what we're talking about, engagement.
Yeah, it washes out. So,
well, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Where are you guys located?
We're in New Jersey.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm down in South Carolina.
Yeah, so Joe and I both teach at the same school in
oh, cool.
Like southern New Jersey. We're about 45 minutes, an hour west or east of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
About 45 minutes west of the coast.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you prefer to be called Dr. Reed, Julian?
It doesn't really matter, honestly.
Okay. All right.
But, I've been called a lot of things. I was telling my students today, we were talking about evaluation and course, we call them at Furman the student opinion surveys, because students have no training on how to evaluate a professor. Right. So we changed the word about 2 decades ago to student opinion. And we were talking about just good ones, bad. And, I'm a pretty challenging professor. So I'm like, listen, I've heard it all. Usually not to my face, but so Julian, Dr. Reed, it's all good.
All right. So usually what we do is we kind of just jump into the show. Joe and I, start the show, introduce you as a guest. We do just a little icebreaker thing that we do at the start of every show. This episode's going to come out the first Monday in March.
Cool.
So we do like this or that as a.
Yeah, I was looking at your notes and stuff like that. So trying to figure out this or that.
Yeah. So since it's March, Joe thought ham and cabbage or shepherd's pie.
Oh, wow. Oh my! I mean, those are not the best of choices. I mean, I'll eat them both. I'll probably go shepherd's pie.
Thank you.
I mean, ham and cabbage. I like ham and I like cabbage too. A good shepherd's pie. Although my kids won't my kids wouldn't touch it, but my wife's from the Midwest, and that's like hot dish, as I like to call it in Minnesota.
Hey.
Yeah, so you betcha. I think shepherd's pie is, I think it gets a bad rap.
Yeah, I agree. No, mashed potatoes and
Oh my God, exactly.
stew
The
meat
mashed
and
potatoes, you can mix in
veggies.
anything and
Yeah.
it'll taste somewhat good.
Exactly. That's was it Patton Oswalt, comedian?
Yeah, I love
That's a
him.
bit about KFC has that bowl with all the stuff just into the mashed potatoes,
Yeah,
and he calls
yeah.
it the KFC sadness bowl.
He cracks me up. Have you seen Failure to Launch with Matthew McConaughey?
I don't think I saw
And
it.
Terry Bradshaw's in it, and he's in it, and Sarah Jessica Parker is
Oh, wow.
hired by parents to kind of come in and get their kids' confidence, like basically totally manipulating them, like they would be that she would actually be their girlfriend and things like that. And he's in it, and there's a scene when she puts her hand on his hand, and it's worth watching. It's worth watching. I'll just say I'll keep it PG. But it's funny movie.
Yeah, I specifically never watched it because once you said Terry Bradshaw, that's what I remember. That he turned me off for the movie. He's not one of my favorites. He's not.
Yeah, he's got a unique twist in the movie. He's Matthew McConaughey's dad.
And who's the mom? The mom's someone famous too.
Yeah, she is. Gosh, it escapes me right now.
Oh God, who's the lady from Misery?
Oh, Kathy Bates.
It's not Kathy Bates, is it?
I don't. No, I think it might be. It's someone like that. Yeah, right? I think it might be because I can picture her folding his laundry right now.
I know it's got that
Matthew McConaughey's.
It's got
he can't get out of the house, and it's just stupid, funny. Yeah. But there's some scenes that you just sort of like. And Patton, he's pretty funny.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
Oh, he's in it too.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He's in it. He's got a scene where Sarah Jessica Parker puts her hand on him, and it's just I'll go from there.
I gotcha. Okay.
Pretty good.
Maybe I'll check it out then.
Yeah, it's worth watching just for a few scenes.
Well, you do that scene.
Yes, that scene. YouTube it, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Did you have anything on the?
No, everything you put down sounds great.
Okay. And it's funny, I did my master's thesis on adding movement to learning. And Joe and I don't know if you know whole brain teaching.
Sure.
So Joe and I use like whole brain teaching all the time.
Oh, cool.
Just because of the movement aspect of it.
Totally. So you're familiar with executive function hypothesis and prefrontal cortex and well, basically blood going to that brain and leading to some changes that not only improve cognition but improve behavior management, like you have on their social emotional learning, improve self-efficacy, self-esteem. Physical activity it really can do a lot, and it's free for the most part, right? But sometimes free doesn't provide value. And there's always that when you get a free trial or something free, well, if they're giving it away. But in this case, prevention, with being active, it doesn't cost you a lot. And of course there's variables if you live in a safe environment, if you can go outside and all those sort of things. But right. If you're in your home, you can even you can get active and with a low barrier to entry. So I'm glad to hear you guys have a background in this stuff.
Yeah. Again, I don't know. We don't know necessarily the brain science.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we know it works in our classrooms.
Yes.
Sure. Totally.
All right, cool. So we'll jump in and start the show, and then I don't know if are you on Twitter or anything?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll push all this stuff out.
Okay. And we'll tag you.
Yeah.
Is it just the walkabouts on
Twitter? Well, it's at Dr. Julian Reed is one. Walkabouts is another. Get Walkabouts. So, I mean, we have a few handles, but you find Walkabouts and then at me, and then we have people on our team and stuff who'll push stuff out.
Yeah, so we'll tag you even tonight. Like sometime tomorrow, I'll just put
Yeah, cool.
Spoke and episodes coming out, and then
and I'll push it out with me
Cool.
too and stuff like that. So
awesome.
we'll share the marketing.
Yeah. All right. So we'll go ahead and jump in.
Sounds great.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the TeacherNerdz Podcast. I'm Ron Nober.
I'm Joe DiPaolo.
I am a technology teacher for 3rd grade to 8th grade.
And I'm teaching 5th grade math, science, and social studies.
And today we have Dr. Julian Reed joining us. Welcome, Dr. Reed.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for being here.
And we're going to be talking about movement and how it helps performance in school. So super excited to hear about that. We're gonna start our show with our icebreaker, our this or that, and this episode coming out beginning of March. Joe, you had the idea of keep it with food, like we always.
We like food, Ron. So we were gonna go with, in honors of St. Patrick's Day, shepherd's pie or corned beef and cabbage. So Ron, why don't you take it off? And
all right,
I'll
start, and then Dr. Reed, you can jump in, and then Joe, you'll bring up the rear.
I want the final word.
Uh-oh. All right. So this is not even close. This is shepherd's pie, 100% all the way. Mashed potatoes, veggies, all in a nice browned crust. Like there's nothing else to say.
And the time is yours, so you would get to say whatever you would like. And I'm not saying, Ron, that I'm against shepherd's pie. I agree, it's delicious. It's good. I like shepherd's pie.
All right, Dr. Reed, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm all over shepherd's pie too. And for the reasons you mentioned, and more probably. It's just good.
So once I threw the topic out there, I actually had to go Google, is that a real traditional Irish meal? Because I didn't know if it was Irish, if it was English, where the origins came from. And then thankfully Google kind of said, yep, it's a traditional Irish meal. I was like, great. Because I don't know, on St. Patrick's Day, I've never seen that on the menu. It's always been a traditional, bars will do it, all you can eat, or when it's, what do they call it? The beef and beer, and it's corned beef and cabbage. So that would be my go-to. And maybe it's because I only get that, we eat it once a year, because as an Italian family and, Italian and Germans, there's not a lot of corned beef and cabbage being made at home. So I will sit there all day with a bottle of mustard and eat that corned beef and cabbage, and maybe a pint of Guinness or two.
Well, I've got the Italian German too. Good to hear you. I ate a lot more pizza than I did corned beef. That's for sure.
True that. So that's where I'm saying corned beef and cabbage, and that's my favorite one day a meal or one meal a year. I get it, so I would take it.
I get that. I get that. And it's got it has some nostalgia for you too, I guess.
I was just gonna say, it's like, it would be, if I didn't eat it on St. Patrick's Day, it would be like Christmas and not watching A Christmas Story.
That's the one when they shoot your eye out, right? Yes.
And it's on for 24 hours, from 8
yes.
p.m. till 8 p.m. the next night. And
it's I love that movie.
When we usually have a Christmas Eve party, and people in my family like it. Not everyone raves about it like I do. Some people really don't like it. At 8 o'clock, that movie turns on and the house starts to empty out little by little.
Well, maybe that's a good thing.
I'm like, at 8 o'clock, from 8 o'clock on, I'm not going to be social. I want to start watching my movie because I haven't seen it in a year.
Yeah. What's his name again?
Ralphie.
Ralphie. And then his real name. Billingsley or something like that.
Peter Billingsley.
Billy Billingsley. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Ralphie. Oh, and Ralphie's parents are just the best.
That's like one of those perfectly cast.
Oh,
movies.
perfect. And then the villain kid with puts his tongue on the tongue on, like freezes his tongue or something like that. Yeah. I've seen that movie a lot. I enjoy it though.
Yeah. So Dr. Reed, can you like just give our listeners a little background? You're not, I mean, you are in education, but not in the K to 12
Right.
education,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I'll
field.
give you happy to.
Yeah.
So, my background, I went to 4-year liberal arts college in upstate New York. Thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. And I volunteered in a geriatric ward my senior spring and realized I did not want to do that. But I was still really interested in science and movement, with PT and rehab, and went on to get a master's degree in sports medicine down at University of Miami in Florida, and thought I was going to become, and I am an athletic trainer. I haven't done that in years, but I thought I was looking to become a curriculum director someday when I knew I was going to get my doctorate. But I started getting really interested in just how physical activity in general, but then more physical activity and what it does, not only to our bodies, but what it does to our brains. And then I went to University of Northern Colorado, and they have their doctoral program in exercise science. And I was focusing actually on quite a bit of how to get more movement into physical education, and beyond physical education in the classroom. Obviously, when you think about physical education, you think kids are always moving, but they're not. The goal is to have at least 50% of your PE time actually in moderate to vigorous physical activity. And in many cases, the data shows it's considerably less than that. But my wife's a classroom teacher, so recognizing, she teaches the grades you guys teach in elementary school, and was always moving around and not just sitting herself, but how do you get kids to move more when you have responsibilities to teach certain concepts, and certain standards. And so as I got more interested in that at University of Northern Colorado, I then came to Furman, and I started looking at more broadly from a public health issue, and went on about 90 miles south of Greenville is Columbia, South Carolina, where the University of South Carolina is, and they have a great graduate program in public health. And so I got really interested in ways to get more movement in schools, because as we know, kids are less active. But it was the late 1990s, early 2000s when the obesity epidemic really kind of reared its ugly head. Because even as a country, we weren't even tracking obesity until the late 80s from adult standpoint. I mean, it was a relatively new phenomenon for us to be scientists investigating. And so the hard part about getting movement into schools, more movement in the classroom, is you guys have a ton to do, right? I mean, there's so much to do, and say, oh, by the way, do this too. And it's just, teachers don't get really receptive to that. So I ended up started teaching a class here at Furman. I taught it for about 15, 16 years, and it was for classroom teachers on how to integrate movement in the classroom, recognizing the classroom teacher sees the kid, the student, the child, elementary age, way more than anybody else. So if you really want to make an intervention to help, you got to have it with the classroom teacher, but you also have to make sure it doesn't take away from instruction time, because instruction time always wins out, and it should win out, right? I mean, kids go to school to learn. So I started thinking of ways to do that. Well, what if you can show principals, administrators, that they always want to hear, well, what's this going to do for my kids? Well, let me tell you, actually, it's going to improve behavior management. It actually is going to improve cognition. That cognition is going to lead to academic achievement potentially. And so you started to see a lot more studies in this area because obesity was going up significantly. Kids were moving less. And to move the needle for administrators in education, it's got to be performance pedagogy. And I don't blame them. That's how they're evaluated, right? It's like going to the manager of the super Walmart. They got to increase month over month sales, right? That's their job, is to do that. Well, an administrator or principal, their job is to make sure their kids are learning to the best of their ability. And if anything takes away from that or perceived to, it's going to be pushed away. And so you started seeing a lot more research throughout the world actually on this. And then you had, nonpartisan groups like the Institute of Medicine and CDC and saying, hey, there's something here. And it actually started in the field of gerontology well before my time in the 60s. And when they found with the executive function, that prefrontal cortex of your brain that is so important for goal setting and managing a goal and decision making. Lo and behold, when the elderly were more active, they improved their executive functions. And that eventually just made its way down to children. And it's now pretty widely accepted. At the very least, it's not going to hurt any child to get them more active, but they're more likely than not to benefit from improved cognition that can lead to academic performance benefits, as well as behavior management, because part of those executive functions in that prefrontal cortex, that movement helps to stimulate to reduce inattention. So that's kind of the story. I ended up writing a couple books on this, and they were paper to pencil books and paper lessons, and in the early 2000s, and then later on more recent. But teachers would ask for more, and I was like, okay, is there a way to do this differently? I was still doing workshops, training teachers, kind of taking that class I was teaching at the university, and then kind of branching it out throughout the country. And then you start looking in classrooms in the early 2000s, the piping was starting to come in, right? With internet, Promethean board, smart board. Right. Oh, there might be a way to leverage this. And with that, I ended up finding a great co-founder whose own children had learning challenges, but he also understands marketing and advertising, and I know nothing about that. And we just said, hey, let's have maybe a potential collaboration here. And lo and behold, we created a company called Active Ed and, Walkabouts, which is using movement to teach those math, language arts, social studies, science, things that a teacher already has to teach, but gives the kids an opportunity to move.
And so with it, before we kind of jump into that, so how does that movement, how does that better the executive functioning?
Okay.
How does it
well,
memory?
So when you start moving, right? So, with our hearts, our blood is going to go up to our brain, and blood below the heart, right, is going to go to the rest of the body. And so when that blood goes to the brain, right, it's obviously carrying oxygen, but it's also carrying a lot of different growth factors as well. And those growth factors help to increase connections. So increase the neurons working together, increase the development of synapses. And so the hypothesis says you have this blood flow, and this blood flow starts to invaginate certain areas of the brain. And when it does that, it stimulates more growth. And then that additional growth with the neurons talking to one another, increasing, the communication with neurotransmitters. And I'm not a neuroscientist. I want to say that. So if someone's listening to this and they say, I'm, not doing it precisely what it is, I understand that. And so there's evidence for that. I mean, there's evidence to show certain areas of the brain, the volume just getting bigger. There are researchers who have shown that that just the most aerobically fit kids, certain areas of their brain are just bigger. And so that's kind of the why from the science standpoint. The blood, the oxygen, it's bringing these growth factors, which then leads to changes in that prefrontal cortex, as well as in the hippocampus, which is really important for memory. So that's a little bit of the science behind it.
So there would be all that being put into play. And I think because we just did the whole staff meeting, maybe was it staff meeting, faculty meeting, whatever it was, focusing on data. And this is the data from last year's test. So to put pencil to paper, we would have to say, all right, so let's try this and then start to analyze the data. But there would have to be more than just that one test to look at, right? Because during that one testing period, are you moving? Do you get the opportunity to move? Or
Yeah, well, okay, so it's interesting you say that. So some of the studies, even we had Iowa State University, University of California, Irvine validate our program. They looked at over 6 weeks, and it compared controls to those who use walkabouts. And over 6 weeks, it increased academic engagement during the lesson and after, and reduced hyper activity as well. But there's evidence now that even after one bout of activity, just one, you can improve cognition and focus. So I even tell my own students, you're coming into a test with me, right? It's scheduled, it's on the syllabus. Let me just turn off my apologize for my email.
No worries.
And
I'm sorry if you hear Stacy in the background making dinner.
No,
Keep muting
you
myself,
might not even heard that.
No.
But as I would say, why wouldn't you get moving? Why wouldn't you be alert? I mean, say we knew nothing about what I just said. If you were going to go take an assessment, anything, you want to be alert. Tell me a time when you have been active in your entire life from a kid where you haven't immediately been more alert just from the traditional way the body and the sympathetic nervous system, right? And getting your body ready for activity, and the fight or flight, as you've heard before. And so, but then you bring in some of these other things like that we've just talked about, and it's more evidence. So it can happen in literally after one bout, there's evidence, but it's obviously better to do it, more than that. But at the very least, and you guys know this better than anything, one of the number one reasons teachers leave the profession is behavior management. If you can get kids to, I know it's counterintuitive, but the research is pretty clear. Kids who have hyperactivity, the worst thing for you to do to them is tell them just to sit down. They need to move.
Be quiet and listen.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's the worst thing you can do. And so by getting them an opportunity to move, and that movement doesn't have to be, run around the classroom. It could just be standing and taking a test, right? Or, doing a short 30 seconds, a minute type of activity just to refocus and recenter themselves. And that gets to that kind of the social emotional as well. We know during COVID, kids were just, from a whole host of reasons behind when they've come back in the classroom. But we know the CDC track some of this, and just from an obesity standpoint, the data pre-COVID to after COVID among, I think it was 6 to 11-year-olds, just on BMIs, of course, and it was a sample, I think, of like 411,000. The BMIs were 2 times higher. Why is that? Because even if you're not getting PE every day, which most elementary schools don't have, kids are walking around, right? They're going to lunch, they're going to recess, they're moving. When they're at home, you don't know what they're doing, and most likely they're not doing a lot, right? And so we have evidence now coming out saying, hey, physical activity is really important also, just for the pandemic has slowed down, to make sure those kids try to get some learning recovery beyond what they normally had in the classroom prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think, you see a lot in K to 12 education, like people are saying behavior is a big deal right now. There's a lot of behavioral problems, and you're just talking about that executive function. That's where your decision making is made, right? Like that's where you decide whether you're going to do this 100% or not.
Yeah. Exactly. Consequence evaluation. It's in there right there. And there's a great book, and he's not far from you guys. He's Dr. John Reed. He wrote Spark back in 2008, New York Times bestseller. He's a psychiatrist, and he's been using movement to treat every disorder that you can really think of. But he talks about that, and he has studies. He documents one, I think, was going up to Canada and working with a group of kids who were just really troublemakers. That's the way he describes them. He calls them bad boys in his TED talk, but I'll just call them troublemakers. And they were not coming to class regularly, and they were just extraordinarily disruptive and making a lot of problems. And they started them on this program, and their disruption instances went way down, and they were much more likely to come to school. And so, it really can work in all different settings. I was being interviewed the other day talking about, moving before something, something's important. And Dr. Reed, in his book, he went out to a school out in Naperville, Illinois, and they set up something called 0-hour PE, or learning readiness PE, where they did it before school started. And I was telling someone just the other day, in Japan, I read an article on Business Week years ago, and this was at the factory. They do group activity before they start their workday as a way of getting alert to focus. And what I would tell teachers when I do teacher trainings is, don't you want to be at peak performance? I mean, this is your job. So why wouldn't you move as well? Not just your kids, because it's going to benefit you too.
Yeah, it's why you had shared, or I think Walkabouts has a bunch of research.
Yeah.
At walkabouts.com. And the one was the 12-week research in North Carolina, where they were doing 10-minute activity breaks.
Yeah, 10-minute activity breaks.
Blown away.
Yeah, by that data. I mean, totally.
8% drop, or 8% increase in on-task behavior. And then on the kids who were the most off task, it was like a 20% increase.
Totally. Yeah, that was a cool.
I
read that study numerous times when initially, and I was like, man, this is, and there's so many out there too. I mean, more and more people are examining this, because I'm not going to say you do this, you'll get that. I mean, it's not
Right.
this causal relationship, but the evidence is more and more compelling. And as I talked about before we were on the podcast, is one of my colleagues down at University of South Carolina, and I was fortunate to participate, but I wasn't the lead on it. But we looked at like 50,000 kids in South Carolina, and you adjusted for poverty index, so you were making sure that it wasn't just kids that from a lower socioeconomic strata, under resourced, compared to kids who had more resources. It didn't matter. The kids who were the most aerobically fit did better on our state achievement tests. So just think about that. If I work with a Title I charter school here, it's 99% free and reduced lunch. And when they started the school, the board chair was like, everyone's going to get PE every day, 45 minutes, K through 8. Nobody was doing that in the whole state, right? And these were kids who were under-resourced. And it wasn't that suddenly they were now going to, outperform everybody else. But it was, we know it can help. So why wouldn't you do the things? I'm not saying you can go get PE every day, because that's expensive. And that's a whole, from a policy standpoint, at a district level and a state level. But the 10-minute breaks, I mean, walkabouts are 7 to 10 minutes in length. They're not that long. We're building a new product called 180s, because it's 180 seconds. It doesn't have to be, I need 15 minutes. No, not at all. Even just general physical activity, people say you need to get 30 minutes. Well, you can break those 30 minutes into 10-minute bouts and still get benefits. And you can even do less than that. There's a lot of researchers in this space are now calling them activity snacks. Like, you go take a snack, go take a 2 to 3 minute, right? Because better than not doing anything else.
An activity snack?
Yeah.
I like that. I like that term. Like, that's
well, it's a way to put it into a context, right?
Yeah.
We snack throughout the day. Why don't go take an activity snack? And I did not coin that, so I'm not going to take any credit for that. In higher education, unless it's yours, you got to give its due to those who came up with the idea. But I love that, those activity snacks, and I mean, you can use that in your classrooms, right? And kids know what a snack is.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're pretty lucky. I mean, our district they just implement it in middle school. They had PE, but they actually also just implemented K to 8 gets recess.
Yeah, I think you had a law that was passed not that long ago in New Jersey about physical activity and things like that. And that, here's the thing about recess. Why do we stop at elementary school?
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
that's
I mean, like, what? You're telling me the middle and high school kids don't need to go out and move? I mean, come on, they probably need it more than anybody else.
right.
My kids, fortunately, their middle school would do some of that when they were in middle school. But adults need recess. I mean, we need to go out and, I have a colleague who doesn't take sitting meetings. His meetings are walking. We can walk and talk. So it's just, and it's not, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here, right? It's not that so someone who's listening to this going, hey, I mean, this sounds really hard to do. It's really not. Take away, you never use walkabouts, whatever, that's fine. You can just implement a little bit of movement without having a background necessarily as a public health professional related to physical activity. You could just rearrange your classroom to spread your desks out more. You could say, hey, we're going to have different stations for the next hour, and every 5 minutes we're going to move to the next station. I mean, I'm not even a creative person, so teachers do way better than me on these things. You go do these workshops, and I think I have a couple good ideas, and the teachers are like, they crush it, and I'm like, yeah, you're not creative, that's for sure. Yep, I can write technically. I don't have any of those skills.
Well, I feel like it's easy, and I could say this coming from teaching third grade where I would have the kids all day to now teaching fifth grade where I have them for 3 periods. And then we change classes and I get another group of kids for 3 periods. Finding 3 to 5 minute breaks, we call them U time, or we used to call it U time, where they would use the time. And I think I've been saying I'm trying to get more intentional about what I do with that U time, because it is productive, because they will work a little harder, because they know once I'm done this drill and skill center, excuse me, we get the 5 minute break. Once we get through this lesson, which can sometimes take up to 25 minutes, and I hand my stuff in and I'm good, not only will I get to do a quote unquote fun math activity and like a puzzle or something, but then I'll get the 5 minutes of you time where if I want to talk, and it stinks because they just want to play games on the computer. So I want to be more intentional about my snack time activities, where maybe that'll be it. Like, now you get some you time, but now you got to do a movement snack.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not? Right.
And also, and I'm thinking, and I guess my original thought was so tunnel. But yeah, so, and it should come from maybe the top where, you do all this stuff and then you have to take that test. Well, then it's how you administer the test. When do you administer the test? Can the kids come in, instead of having to take it right in the morning, do some type of morning activity? We're trying to get, or teachers in our group are trying to get a walkway paved, so there is something, so they can have a mile walkabout out there. And not that, like you just said, you don't have to do the whole class walking around. You don't have, but to have 3 minutes and go. I went to a basketball game last night I had six girls in the class. Well, there's more than 6 girls, but of all the girls in the class, 6 of them are playing basketball. 5 are on one team. 1 was on the other team. They were playing each other last night. And I was joking with the parents and I said, you know what these girls need? They need to dribble more. So instead of doing their drill and skill centers, I'm going to send them out in the hallway and they're all going to dribble a basketball. And the dad was like, oh, that would be so awesome. Because you know what? She's pretty good with her math facts. So if she could dribble the basketball during the day, that would be, and I'm like, you know what? Why couldn't she sit out there? Besides that, holy crap, would I hear some stuff from the other teachers. But if she was out there going 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, crossover. Oh my God.
Or shooting free throws and coming up with a percentage. Well, right. What was right? I mean,
so they were asking, because all four out of the five girls were sitting at one group today, and they said, why can't we do a math problem, shoot a hoop, do a math problem, do a layup? And I said, it's funny because when we used to have the NJ Ask, I remember running an NJ Ask Olympics. And
Yeah, we did that.
Were you involved in that, Ron?
Yep.
And I told the girls, I said, we had a desk set up by a hoop, and you would be at half court and you would run down. If you solve the math problem right, you get a point. If you shoot a layup, you get a point. If you did a foul shot, you get 2 points. And then you run back and they're like, oh my God, that would be so cool. I'm like, yeah, but that was like 15 years ago. And I was a lot younger. I said, that would be really tiring. And they're
Well,
like, oh my God.
I mean, once again, it's not every day, but you just demonstrated making learning fun. And I'm not saying it's not fun before, but let's be honest, our kid, you talk about math, that you said fun math, and I was like, that's an oxymoron for some people, right? You know, but so this is what's cool about what stuff that we've done is with teachers is the kids will say, yeah, can we go do that thing when we were hopping over and following our character, because we have two characters, two avatars, and the teachers are like, yeah, man, that's awesome. They have no idea that was a math lesson, but because they're engaged in the content in a way that they enjoy doing. I mean, when I was in elementary school, my favorite class was PE. My second favorite class was recess, which is not a class, right? And not that I didn't I actually really enjoyed math, but when you're young, movement is something most of the time you like to do, the young people, at least young kids. So why not use that to your advantage versus, sometimes just making them sit there. And I'm not saying you two do that at all, but there are teachers that still believe, young children should be quiet.
Right. Sitting in rows and being quiet. And yeah.
Well, I did have to, Ron, we were talking about this, am I ever going to see this math problem again? And I talk about this a lot. And now being new to fifth grade math curriculum, there's been more than once I had to go next door to the girl that's been teaching it for a while and said, what's the why? Because I'm going to skip this. I don't, why? And, it was, oh, well, they'll never need it unless, if they're going to be sending moons to rockets, yes, they're going to need to deal with numbers that big. So they're going to need to deal with exponents, but that's your why. And I said, all right, that's fine. I could deal with that. At least there's something. And the kids are like, we're never going to use this. And it was, whether it's fate or the phone listening and the algorithms, but I'm on YouTube and I see Neil Tyson on Rogan. Do you know this? Do you know this bit or this? Clip?
No, but I know him. He's on so much stuff
and
making science applicable.
And Ron, right?
Yep.
They're like, I'm never going to need this math problem. And he says, no, you might not ever see that problem again. But to what you just said, Dr. Reed, like you trying to solve that problem, things are going to fire. Connections are going to be made. So you might not ever need to solve that specific problem again, but solving that problem now is going to develop strategies and creative thinking and all this other stuff. So now you're saying doing that and during some type of movement is then going to throw it up even more or give the opportunity for it to stick.
Yeah,
make it greater.
That's what you said. And that's a context part that we add too. So when we're teaching long and short vowel sounds for first grade, we have a walkabout that says, okay, let's reach up for a long vowel sound. Let's squat down low for a short vowel sound. And right away, the teacher can see, okay, who's getting the concepts or not. But as a kid, long vowel, I'm stretching. Short vowel, I'm squatting. So getting it sticking is another way of using movement as a context. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Patch Adams with Robin Williams.
Yep.
Okay, and it's based on a true story. But when he goes into the mental institutions, and I believe it's Mendelssohn, but I could be messing up the name, but the famed mathematician is in the institute, in the mental institute with him. And Patch comes in right away, and Mendelssohn goes in, he goes, how many fingers am I holding up? And Patch looks at him and he goes, 2, and he goes, you're an idiot, or something like that. And then throughout, in the movie, and then Patch realizes what he wants to do, and kind of has that breakthrough, remember, with his roommate and stuff, and then that's when he wants to help people. And as he's leaving, I think Mendelsohn goes again. Okay, how many fingers am I holding up? And then Pat squints and he sees 2 behind and he goes forward. He goes, now you're getting somewhere. And the point, the way I perceive that was, okay, this is 2. 2 what? Right? What's the context of that 2? Right? Because if you and so we'll do, okay, well, how about 2 jumps? Right? 2 skips, you put into some sort of context. And that's another way. I mean, if you really think about movement's the oldest form of teaching and learning. It's the first thing you do when you're born is you move. You kick your feet, you move your arms, right? I mean, what are we doing when we're parents? We're encouraging our kids to move. I mean, although it makes life really difficult when they start walking, as you know, it's awesome when they can't early on, but you encourage it, right? You're like, yeah. And then we suddenly go, no, we don't want that anymore. Something's changed. And so movement helps that sensory motor integration, back to your college days with Piaget, right? And getting that concrete operational and pre-operation, all that. But, it starts with that sensory motor, interpreting that sensation. And, movement is one of, plays a role in that.
How do you learn that candle is hot? You go to touch it.
Exactly. Totally. Right.
When my friends came over years before I had kids with the baby, and they put the baby down, and we had cleaned and everything was all set, and she comes over, she's blowing things out, she's picking up things that are sharp. She's like, no. And I'm like, oh yeah, and they said, well, Connor's gonna be all over the place. And I said,
yeah.
Put him on a leash.
Well, I mean, it's like, okay, your infant's crawling and they come to a wall. Do you think they're just going to stay there? No, they're going to go, okay, I've learned I can't go there. I got to go in another direction, right? They're going to solve the problem. I mean, the human brain has tremendous plasticity and capacity for change and solving problems. And
struggle,
putting
right? Or struggling, right? Because aren't you doing that? You're struggling
Sure.
through, or when you
absolutely,
get into this
perseverance.
world.
Absolutely. I mean, I always say this, and I got it from a colleague: learning isn't comfortable, right?
Right.
Perfect. Yep.
Right.
It shouldn't be. I mean, if your kids come to class and they're just kind of hanging out, I put in my syllabus, I have a modified Socratic method, which basically means I'm calling you whenever I want. Now, if you don't know the answer, I'm not going to hang you out there to spotlight you, right? I'll go to somebody else. They don't know the answer, I'll go to somebody else. But the third time I say, if all 3 of us don't know what's going on, we're going to have a pop quiz, because that's telling me you're not prepared. But being alert, it goes back to what we were talking about, being alert. And arousal is movement. Rady talks about this, and arousal, and in motor learning, there's something called the inverted U, which deals with arousal and learning. And eventually, you plateau. You can only get so much stimulation, but that stimulation is key for absorbing information. We know in motor development, positive stimulation plays a major role. I don't know any parent when their kid was just about to learn how to walk, right, about a year's out, that said, "Don't walk to me. Don't you ever do that." I mean, right? I mean, show me a parent who did that. It was like, come on, you're so excited. Right? It's that positive stimulation. So
it's funny. Yeah. I mean, you're saying that, like, when I did my master's thesis about movement and just retention of things, one of the things I talked about was, if I started to sing the Itsy Bitsy Spider right now, everybody will know the movements that go with it. You may not have done the movements in 40 some years,
but you had that context to it. That's what you did.
Yeah. It's so connected. So if you start doing that with concepts that you're trying to have students remember, put some movements to them.
Well, that's mirrors and words, right? With
totally
whole brain teaching.
Right.
Yeah. And and it can people think it's just young children. Columbia University, not far from you, an Ivy League school, they use movement to teach physics for certain wave theory. I remember reading an article, and in my fundamentals of rehab class today, we're dealing with anatomy, and I'm saying, if you just memorize muscles on a piece of paper, it's really hard to retrieve that. Do the action of the muscle with, like, maybe weightlifting, right? So you're trying to learn, okay, biceps. Well, what do biceps do? They flex at the elbow. Well, why wouldn't you flex at the elbow as you're studying that? And then you can get into the origin and the insertion and all that you still have to have. But instead, if you look at a piece of paper, what does biceps mean? I mean,
Right.
most people are like, by means two. Other than that, I don't know what it is, right? Put it into a context is going to help you remember.
Yeah, it's I mean, Joe, and I was thinking, like, you were talking about if students finish, like in our school, we have, you obviously don't want them walking the hallways and disrupting another class, right? But we have like a breezeway down to a main entrance that is no classrooms. How cool would it be? 3 people. Yep. Go ahead. Go for a walk and talk. Here's a timer. Be back in 3 minutes.
Totally. And try and maybe even give them a problem. Like, hey,
Right.
here's a situation,
Yeah. See if you guys can talk this out.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. Or like you were talking about basketball, put down two carpets in the hallway.
Well,
And go out and dribble a basketball.
we
Now
have
it's
this
not
area
hanging.
right behind us. And
Right.
that's my, like,
I'm just thinking like that would echo
Yeah.
there.
Or you could actually just don't even use the ball itself, crimple up paper, and kids love to play shooting,
Right.
into a trash can.
Yep.
Right. That's not a lot of noise, but you could do that,
you could
right?
come out and take a quote
Dude,
unquote
hang a
free
Nerf hoop
throw.
on the wall.
Yeah, a Nerf. Oh
could.
my God, a Nerf hoop would
Right?
be perfect. I loved that as a kid. I played that Nerf, but see, that's not going to be disruptive.
Right.
You're going to make it fun, right?
And I could do it right. Like we have I have a little alcove right outside my room that I could 2-sided tape. I don't think it would be a
Nerf hoop on
fire
the wall.
hazard. And that's, you get one shot. You go out, come back in, maybe solve a problem. You got it good. Oh, you get another shot.
Yeah. Well, and if you did enough shots, you can say, okay, we've had 10 trials. Let's graph it. Right. And things. I mean, there's a lot of different
That is
ways
a math class.
Yeah. You can come with, let's figure out the mean and the, all those sort of things.
Yeah.
Ooh,
My
what
Nerf-
fraction did you make? What fraction? Ooh, because we're at, oh my goodness. We're what yep. Oh, tomorrow. Ooh, you know what? And tomorrow we have this green and gold day, which they have activities, or we could do anything we want. Holy crap. That might I might do a fraction lesson tomorrow.
Yeah.
But that means I gotta go get that Nerf hoop tonight.
Yeah. Well, make your own, right? Honestly, I'm gonna go to Dixer Academy and buy one this weekend because I loved that. You had to shut the door to really get it in there.
Yeah.
And I used to do that. Gosh, I would do that even in high school, just to have fun. Because that ball is so light, you just gotta, sometimes a big hand, it's like Shaq when he was shooting free throws, our hands are too big for that Nerf ball. It's sometimes hard to shoot.
Yeah, but that's gonna be perfect for those. And they're gonna love that.
Yeah.
Yep. That's good.
Cool.
It's a podcast nugget that we could use
There you go.
tomorrow.
There we go. Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, well, that's why people should listen to the podcast.
There you go.
It's like any good PD. It's a good PD if I can walk away and implement it the very next day.
Yeah, and you pick up at least
Right.
one
and
thing.
it's easy. And it's easy.
And you're not expecting to everything, but you're like, hey, I got something from that. I can do it tomorrow.
I will be going to buy something because I'm kind of fancy with that. Like I want a nice Nerf hoop, but then I'm going to come home and then order on Amazon. I'm a big North Carolina Tar Heel fan. I know there's a North Carolina Tar Heel. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Hopefully,
no, I'm kidding. I like my daughter. That's only like 4 hours from here. She, was thinking about. That's such a great school. Yeah, she got waitlisted and then she got in, but she already decided to go somewhere else. But
it's not like Duke, is it, or NC State?
Chapel Hill.
Oh
no, the school. Oh no, the other school.
Yeah.
No. She's at the University of Denver.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
As long as it wasn't in the triangle, it's okay.
No, that is right. Well, I would take NC State over Duke.
Oh God, you and the Bowers. We have a whole family in Southampton that have all gone to NC State. And I taught one of the kids, there's actually a picture I lost a bet. I don't know if it was a Final Four bracket or just when NC State played UNC in basketball, UNC lost. So I had to buy an NC State shirt. And Ron, it was in your class. You took the picture of him and I'm doing thumbs down. He's doing thumbs up. And we're both wearing NC State shirts.
Yeah, I'm a Miami. I did my master's. And it's weird. Sometimes I do love Chapel Hill. And sometimes I find myself rooting for Duke at times. And then I'm like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah, I'll never.
That's why Why we host Greenville had a host of the first 2 rounds last year, so I
Oh,
went to the games.
oh,
And
nice.
Duke was here, and so was Miami. And so I got to see, him play and
Yeah.
stuff. It's I love college basketball.
Well, when I saw Ron, your beard this morning, I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm like, he's not a Duke fan. I know he's not. I
Yeah.
know that would have nothing to do.
Nope.
I'm like, but I just don't like those colors together.
Well, it kind of looks like a Blue Devil. Look at it.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. With the pointed beard and
Yeah,
Oh, off topic a little. Sorry.
it's all right.
No, it's
That's the best.
movement, right?
Yeah,
College
right.
basketball. That's
Yeah.
it's all
And
right.
the best conversations are always, you go on a little circuitous way to do something. And I've enjoyed, talking with you guys. Seems we're just having a conversation, which is fun, which are the best,
Right.
Yeah, that's what we'd like it to be.
Yeah.
So we kind of glanced over, but walkabouts.
Yeah.
So like, can you tell our audience what is walkabouts? How do teachers use them?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really simple. If you can check your email, you can log in. It's all in the cloud, right? You log in, you have a dashboard there. You literally pick, I'm teaching first grade. And then another when, goes down. Oh, I'm teaching ELA. Oh, foundation standards come around. And then you pick one of those and then lessons go. I'm going to do long and short vowel sounds. 4 clicks. And a walkabout will come up, and we have 2 characters. We have a boy character named Jax, a girl character named Gia. What's really cool is it changes every time you play it, so you can't memorize the answers. So a kid and a teacher can redo that long and short vowel sound or numbers base 10, and they're going to get different words and different transition movements. And we timestamp everything for you. So 2 days later, say you go and you forgot what you did, right under those 4 drop downs, you have recent walkabouts, and you pick it, and it's 1 click, tells you the date and the time. So we made it, having a wife as a classroom teacher, got to keep it simple. So we want to keep it really simple, easy to use. You can also just go through a search, just like anything. You can put whatever you're teaching in and do without the 4 clicks. And even you're teaching 2nd grade, there might be a cool walkabout for 1st grade or kindergarten that is something that you can do, because you also have a speed choice where you can do default, our regular speed, or you can go faster, or you can go slower. And then all of our walkabouts come with walk sheets, which are paper to pencil activities that you can do as, after, to see if they understand the concept. There's movement we integrate with that too. So it's really simple. There's almost no request for PD on how to use it, because we can see in live when we set out credentials, people logging in right then, because it's just, you log in and you can. With technology today, most people have spent so much time with different interfaces. Like people forget, I think WebEx was around way before Zoom, right? But WebEx was always way more complicated. And Zoom made virtual interaction simple, right? You just, boom, you're in. And we wanted to make sure this is something that even if you have no technical skills, every elementary public school teacher in this country has to have an email address. So you have to check your email. And if you can check your email, that's all you need to log in.
And so what subject areas does it cover?
Okay. Yeah. So we cover, with the younger kids, it's primarily math and language arts. And then we have social studies and science in our walk sheets, and social emotional learning and Spanish for some of our higher grades. And then as we're expanding our new platform, we're going to build more of that science and social studies, as well as just skills of looking someone in the eye when you're shaking their hand, and some life skill. We did a lot of focus groups with some of our younger teachers, and they said so many kids were coming in because at home in COVID, they didn't learn, for instance, in kindergarten, self-space.
Yeah.
which is one of the first lessons you teach in PE. You come in, the PE teachers are like, all right, put your arms out here. See, this is how much space you take up. And this teacher were telling us kids come in and have no idea because they've been out of the classroom for 2 years, right? Or just basic, even just hygiene and washing your hands and simple things. So we're building some more of just life skills sort of stuff as well.
And what grade levels?
Yeah, so we're pretty much a pre-K through 5th grade.
Okay.
We can do it at higher grades. We've been asked to do it in higher grades. We're small. And, as we get more capacity, we'll probably build that out because we always get requests from middle school, high school, because you really can do it. It just takes looking at things a little bit differently. I mean, the elementary age does lend itself well to it. But also, as you guys know from whole brain learning, the 3 to 8 is the sensitive learning period.
Right.
So that's also why we focus on that time frame.
And
I feel like those students aren't, I'm sorry, Ron, like they'll do something, right? They're not necessarily embarrassed or at that. I mean, even in 5th grade now, a lot of the whole brain teaching I was doing in 3rd grade, they're not into now.
Yeah, in middle school, I mean, middle school is tough.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, I have 3 teenage daughters. So you don't need to say anything more. You can just know. But yeah, thank you. But in middle, they talk about middle school, and there's so much going on, right? Of just physiologically, emotionally, and social. I mean, it's just such a hard time. And then you get boys and girls together. And nobody wants to be embarrassed, right? Whereas in elementary, what is so cool about it from a development standpoint, your best friend can be the opposite sex, right? Because developmentally, you're really similar, and that's what's so cool. And you don't mind making a fool of yourself because you don't even know you're making it. You're just giggling, having a good time. Right. That's what happens when you start developing. Oh, okay, how are people looking at me? Unfortunately, it's just part of development, but it definitely hinders creativity.
What we've always talked about before, Ron, right? And I'm sorry, I think I keep cutting you off every time you go to talk. Like, imagine if it's implemented, and this is, I think everything should be implemented first in kindergarten, and then kindergarten and 1st grade the next year, and then the following year kindergarten first. This way, everyone's kind of
right. You're exposed to it, and it becomes part of the culture. And that's what we try to do at the charter school. Was okay. We're starting now. The school's already K through 8. He took over a flailing. It was going to go out of it was going to close, and he didn't want that because where would these kids go? But every new kid coming in at kindergarten realizes, oh, I move every day. That was just kind of part of who it is. And then it just becomes a norm, right? Yep. This is what we do.
Are you able to create a walkabout?
Yeah. So the way, I mean, you can create in the sense within our confines, right? You get a certain few selections and things like that. However, we have done contests in the past, what we call real world walkabouts, where we're challenge teachers to come up with one video, and the best one, we give them a gift card or something like that. Because going back to teachers are way more creative. Ideally, we want to build our player, and I'm not a technologist, but we have a great team who does that, where you can input different things, and it's almost like the AI a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can, like anything costs, you need resources to do it. But at some point I could envision saying, okay, here are my inputs. Give me a lesson.
Yeah.
That's cool. Which would be really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's right. And so people can.
Yeah, you can. You can
trial.
Yeah, we get 3 free trial. And if you need more time, happy to do that and extend it. I would encourage you guys to, take a look at it and see if you have some interest. And let me know. You can just go to walkabouts.com. You can sign up right there, 30-day free trial.
Cool.
You can find me on Twitter
too.
Yeah. And if like I said, if you need to extend it, we're flexible. And then, I'm at Dr. Julian Reed on Twitter and at Walkabouts, and I was, if someone wants to reach out, email, you can find me at Furman University too, and I'm happy to respond back. The more teachers we have getting kids moving, obviously the healthier they're going to be, and that benefits everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just going to benefit them as adults.
Totally. Right.
Like, yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, man. I really enjoyed it. You guys have a good chemistry.
Thank you.
So it's really fun talking to you about.
I appreciate that.
It's always a little nerve wracking. And Ron, you can like edit this part out. Like,
well, here, wait. We can stop recording and then.
I don't have a doctorate.
Picture.
So like anytime I feel like, and this is just my like, am I going to be undergunned on this show? Am I going to know what I'm talking about on this show? And so you're very easy to talk to. I feel like it was just
you too. Yeah, this was not hard at all. I mean, it was, and I suspect it runs the gamut with you guys. I bet you have ones real simple, and I'm sure there's others where it's just, it's harder because just different personalities. But I always find the best content. You're into sports. One of my favorite shows is the Dan Le Batard show with Stu Gatz, because almost everything that is great was not even in the plan, right? You know what I mean?
Okay. And, yep.
It's just, and they talk about real things that really happen to real people, and it's kind of like Mike and the Mad Dog, when years ago, they would go on their tangents and things like that. But some of the best content is something that's not planned, scripted, or anything. It's just kind of, I never even thought about that, and accuse you to that. And then, I was just listening to them before this, and I mean, they get me laughing out loud just with some stupid things that they think about that I'm like, oh, other people do think about those things, right? Because you sometimes, it's kind of like when you're reading People magazine or something and go, they're just like us. Well, stars are just like. And
that's what I was just gonna say. This is a real show. We're just sitting here talking, right?
Yes, right. And that's how there is. They'll talk about, oh yeah, traffic, couldn't make it in, or yeah, someone was behind me in Publix and I couldn't, and it drove me, and so they're talking about things, unless you are the famous of famous when everybody does things for you. The majority of people still have to go to the grocery store and still have to, get food on the table and all those sort of things. And these guys they used to be on ESPN, and now they're talking about day-to-day living things that you're just laughing about. Oh my goodness, yes, like that slow person behind you in line who whips out a paper check. Right. And you're just like, okay, right. And then you look and you're like, well, it could be my grandma or grandpa, so you just got to be patient. But it's like, who writes paper checks, right? And so that's
with that swipe, man, you get right through that.
Yeah, that's right.
Beautiful.
But that's what's fun about, when you have good conversation, it always just cues other things.
Well, I'll definitely be ordering my UNC basketball thing tonight after my trip to Dick's.
Okay. So Furman last night played in overtime. We beat Sanford in the Southern Conference. So we're not Chapel Hill level, but we're D1.
Well, I'll tell you what, my coworker is a huge Hoosiers fan, and she's been talking to me since like probably December or January. Oh, your Tar Heels don't look too good. I said, Lisa, it's early in the season. It's early season. Let's wait. And now they're winning and things are looking good. I'm like, see, I don't start to worry until February.
Well, look at last year with Chapel Hill. I mean, and then that run. I mean, they barely made the tournament.
I know. So like, that's what I watch, because I watch more other teams. So I'm a little more well-versed with my brackets, which always never do well. But I would much rather watch having a bracket, because then it's like ooh.
Well, I like that center. Is it Bayot?
Yeah, Bayot.
Something like that.
I don't know.
Yeah, but he's awesome. He's so good. They made it to the championship game last year. I mean, because I was watching them early on. I'm like, man, this is Chapel Hill, and I always feel bad when you follow a giant of a coach. Right.
Yeah.
Roy Williams and stuff. And it's Hubert Davis, right? And I love him, and I want him to be
who used to be a player.
But, totally, all that stuff. But you want him to be successful. He's such a likable guy. And you're like, you don't want people to suddenly go, oh, he's not Roy Williams. And so I was pretty excited for him.
And you know what he could check off on his resume? He sent Krzyzewski home with the loss.
There you go.
Yep.
I mean, and for Chapel Hill fans, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yep,
Right?
that's it.
Yeah.
And after that game, I'm like, I don't care if we win. I don't care
Yeah.
what happens after this, because
Yeah,
that will go
you know.
down, right? With all those, how many wins, how many, versus who cares? Because we sent their
Yeah.
king home.
Well, I don't know if you watch Coach K's last game at home, which you're talking about,
Yeah.
is when they lost, right? And it was at home, and he had all the players come in, and he loses to I mean, talk about, man. And he had to sit out there on the court, and the president was talking, and he's throwing his team under the bus too. He's like, well, they'll learn from this loss tonight, and this sort of stuff. But it's like, oh, you couldn't have picked try to win one on your last day.
What's that called?
Well, listen, guys, I'll share it too, and then when it's getting closer to come out, just let me know. If you can just send me some info, that'd be great.
Cool. Do you mind? I'm going to stop the recording, and do you mind if I'll snap a screenshot?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.